Bill was haunted by the Griffon engine. It was a very powerful engine. Of course, everything about that program was scaled up, the boat size, and so it was a mammoth program compared to what we were working with. That particular time, but after 1980, Bill made some decisions with the team manager to do some experimental programs with the motors, the Merlins, mainly because we couldn't afford, Bill could not afford to get involved into the Griffon program at the time. We were researching motors, their availability, and starting to look for them around the world. But at the time, we had to make do with what we had.
And now the time has come. The final heat of the Champion Spark Plug Regatta. $60,000 up for grabs. The Scott Pierce and Michael's Pride wants lane 1. Dean Chenoweth in the Budweiser slides in slot 2. The Pay and Pack in lane 3. Madison lane 4. And on the outside, Wil Muncey in the Atlas Van Lines. First across the line is Michael's Pride with the rookie, Scott Pierce. Why he'd want to be in lane 1 at this point, I don't know, but we'll see. Here comes Muncey on the outside, aiming for that number 1 corner in a patented turn, and I've lost the Budweiser somewhere in the spray of water. Muncey comes out on top, passes the Michael's Pride boat, starts to shake down the back chute, and he's on his way. Meanwhile, the leader is Bill Muncey as he goes down the back chute in the Atlas Van Lines, and look at Dean Chenoweth and Miss Budweiser. He's coming on strong. You'll see him in a moment. Just whip out of the tail. There he is. Now we are going to have a battle on our hands, side by side. Oh, no! Bill Muncey just lost something. He just popped something in the Atlas, and Dean Chenoweth and the Budweiser will have it pretty much their own way. Meanwhile, Bill, of course, gets up to direct traffic, says, hey, guys, look at me. Don't hit me. I'm here. Whoa! He almost got a Sunday afternoon shower there, courtesy of Milner Irwin and Miss Madison.
And there were some programs that were successful in air racing with the Rolls Merlin engine that would bring us more horsepower, and so we felt we could take that to the boat. And so that entire winter between 1980 and 1981 was developing all these new parts for the Merlin engine. And we started out the season with those parts in the motors, and the 1981 season, which was Bill's last season, was probably the most disastrous season that in his career racing. We broke a lot of motors, we broke a lot of parts, and when we left Seattle to go east on the circuit, we weren't sure how this new engine system was going to run, so a couple of us decided to let's fill the truck up with all the parts that we took out.
We've been persistent, and we've been getting our doors blown off, and you know, I've been towed in by some of the neatest towboat drivers in all the world, and I don't see anything wrong with being persistent and continue to try and continue to go after it, and I feel that's sort of American.
But it started out slow. The first time you went out, I was standing down in the pits. You blew an engine first time out. Did you think, here we go again?
Oh, no question about it. I felt, geez, I can't afford any more of this. Hey, I've blown 6 engines on this tour just in the East alone. So the price of racing is going up by the square root. We didn't arrive in the pit area here in Evansville. Even we were a day or two late even getting into the pits, working out at our Atlas Van Line shops there by the airport. It was a struggle, and I hate to see that, and I can't stand it. And you get to a point where it's so frustrating, you're almost ready to commit suicide or shoot somebody just to relieve the pressure. But you know what was a neat thing about my crew?
What's
in
that?
All of this, they never lost their sense of humor. I think that's just super.
We got to Evansville, Indiana, and nothing was working on the new systems. So 3 or 4 of us tore the engines apart completely down to the crankshafts. In fact, we were working in the Atlas Van Lines warehouses in the garages. And we worked day and night for 3 nights, 3 days, to build motors that were stock. And that was the only race in 1981 that Bill won.
All 5 drivers executed perfect flying starts, and as the cannon sounded for the final time, Dean Chenoweth and Bill Muncey were side by side crossing the starting line. The Miss Bud flew into turn 1 and out of turn 2, opening a 1-second lead on Muncey. Chip Hanauer was 3rd and Kentuckiana Paving 4th. Milner Irvin's Miss Madison lost the nose piece on lap 1 and was 5th down the backstretch. The race soon turned into a 2-boat affair. Miss Bud opening a 3-second lead over the Miss Atlas Van Lines. The 2 machines soared over the Ohio River. with Chenoweth setting a new competition lap record at 128.342 miles per hour, breaking the record he set just last year by 0.2 of a second. But Muncey hung tough, sticking behind the Bud. And then on the green flag lap, and just a mile till the finish, something in the Miss Bud engine let go. Chenoweth and powerful Miss Budweiser were finished for the day. They floated aimlessly in the water as Bill Muncey roared past the Bud, and for the first time this season, Muncey was able to take the checkered flag first, capturing his second Thunder on the Ohio Championship with an average speed of 113.5 miles per hour. The Squire Shop finished second, and Miss Madison was third, followed by Kentuckiana Paving, and the reigning queen, the Miss Budweiser, failed to finish. But even though Muncey was the victor, it was the Squire Shop machine that took center stage. Just ahead of Muncey's victory lap, the Squire Shop exploded and burst into flame, engulfing the engine compartment and the cockpit. Driver Chip Hanauer managed to free himself from the boat and was pulled to the dock, placed on a stretcher and taken to Welborn Hospital, where he was treated and released. Meanwhile, on the winner's circle, Muncey was expressing his concern for Hanauer while trying to enjoy his first taste of victory since the Circus Regatta last September.
Oh, man, that was a swinger, wasn't it? It was a barn burner. I don't know what the average speeds were, but they had to be an awful lot of fun for those who were watching. I was having a marvelous time driving in it, and we've just proven the original theory when we started the tour this year, that we knew that the Budweiser was odds-on, had to be with all that extra power, that nobody could really beat him. And that, on the other hand, we, the Atlas Van Lines, chose to be persistent and stay after him, and it cost us an awful lot to do that. We gave up 3 good second-place finishes on the tour by keeping after him, and we continued to break. It was us that we were doing the braking. And on the other hand, today he was the one that broke. So I don't, they don't need condolences in that camp. It's the most historic camp by far in certainly the history of our sport, and the most well-publicized, and certainly one of the finest racing teams, and driven magnificently and prepared beautifully. So they don't have any, I'm certain, second thoughts about it. It was just, let's go on to the next race. A couple of people who talked to us a little bit after the race was over said, gee, they've just proven that they're human and they're subject to human weakness like everybody else. Of course, we've been proving that for a long time, this whole tour this summer. I don't think that there's anything that within that organization that would indicate there was a human error or anything. I think they probably just broke something. That's all. It's just that simple, because historically the Budweiser is by far the most famous boat in the history of marine racing throughout the world, as far as I'm concerned, and they do everything right there in that camp. But we did some things that were pretty good, and it is another. Not you, Darrell, you wouldn't, you're too class for this kind of thing, but one reporter did say that, well, don't you feel that, I backed into that race, and don't you think that's sort of a crummy thing to do? And I said, yeah, I really think that's a crummy thing to do right on the way to the bank. That's what.
I told him he was getting old and he ought to quit driving, and he kept telling me I'm driving better than I ever did, and I said, I have to agree with you. You're driving better than you've ever driven before. And the closest the discussion ever got to him not driving anymore was, well, maybe we can get a younger guy in a year or two, or sometime we'll get. But right now there's no need. I'm on top of it. I'm in good shape.
You go to Pasco, Washington next. What are your thoughts?
There's going to be world records set at every single race, and there are more boats now able to set world records, I think, than ever before in our history. How can you think about getting out when all these neat things are happening? There's a lot of exciting things happening in our sport, and I would hate to stop right now. I'm having a marvelous time, and I want to stay associated with it, and I hope that we can be maybe equally as innovative.
You are especially having a good time tonight, and forgive me for talking about Washington. Let's relish tonight's win. Congratulations.
Thank you.
As Bill Muncey slowed down a little bit, Budweiser starts to pull up with him on the back chute. But now Atlas Van Lines gets it going together again, and now has opened up about a 10-boat length lead over Budweiser, who is second. Third is the Squire. Fourth is the Frank Kenny Toyota, Miss Madison. Fifth is the Oberto, and sixth is the Tempest, and everybody is on lap number 2 now as they come around. Bill Muncey showing him the short way around the course of the Atlas Van Lines. What a surprise. Looks like he had some horsepower we did not know about, and neither did Dean Chenoweth. And now Bill Muncey in the Atlas Van Lines comes out of corner number 4, bounces through some rough water, settles down, the rooster tail starts to rise, gets on the nitrous oxide button, and takes the green flag with 1 more lap to go. About 150
24 miles an hour right now. Chip Hanauer is coming on the inside to lap Bob Mashman, and he's going to give Dean Chenoweth a little run here, but it looks like Dean's got that locked up. Here, Scotty Pierce is very consistent. Hey, Milner Irvin's got those 13,000 on their feet again. Another big payday for the Madison.
All right, the Budweiser's gone by. Here comes Squire. Budweiser has gone by and Squire. They're all on the last lap, the top three boats. The other two boats have been lapped. Uh-oh! The Atlas Van Lines is going dead in the water. The Atlas Van Lines has just come off of corner number 2 and is blowing something. Atlas Van Lines with Bill Muncey is going to have a taste. Oh, a bitter defeat as now the Budweiser goes by and with a half a lap to go. Shades of Evansville 2 weeks ago when it was the Budweiser going dead in the water with a half a lap to go. But look, the Squire Shop is going to challenge the Budweiser. It's not over yet. It's going to be a drag race. We'll have to call it. On the corner number 4, Squire, Budweiser, Squire, Budweiser, side by side. They come off shaking loose. It's the Squire. Now the Budweiser pulls up. They're almost side by side, but the Squire is going to win. The Squire wins. Squire, Budweiser, that close.
Bill, I read a quote in the paper this week, I think, that, and the part of it said, it's okay, I'm already a bad guy in Seattle.
I don't think I could ever do anything right in Seattle, win or lose. They just sort of hate me a little bit. I don't know why. I got booed right out of the Kingdome, first man in the history of power sports. And I didn't do anything except say that the San Diego Chargers are going to blow the doors off the Seahawks. That's all I said.
I think when it was the Bill Muncey come to Seattle, you know, the tough guy, for the media thing, that was fine. But when he got introduced at that football game and felt 60,000 people booing him, I think he took it personal. Now, I think they were just still kind of playing the character. Of course, they booed him. It was respect, you know. But I think it deeply hurt him, that particular moment.
As long as they are for you or against you, at least they're involved in the sport. I think that's the trick part. And a lot of people maybe don't like the way I drive a boat, or they don't like the way I appear. I'm sort of strange looking, and I didn't grow good hair, and I'm a little teeny person. I got little dinky legs and arms and other stuff that ain't working so good. But it's just one of those things. On the other hand, they can never say that we're not, you know, trying to run super strong and win as many boat races as we can. That's the objective, and we do that.
When he talks like that, what does that do to you? What kind of strategy
Makes
is
him
he?
wanna throw
What kind
up.
of strategy is he employing
I agree with him 100%. You know, he's got dinky arms, and he doesn't grow good hair. He's a pretty good boss. You know, he drives a race boat good, and he does a good job for boat racing in general. And Bill Muncey has made, you know, very dedicated commitment to our sport, and I think that you know, we as drivers and everybody that's involved in the sport owes Bill an awful lot for that.
So you want to pay him back?
Well, no, we're just going to overlook the fact that he has dinky arms and skinny legs and doesn't grow good hair.
My doors off.
Very humble guy.
Way on the inside is Thousand Trails, slowing down considerably. Next to him, the Budweiser. Oh, traffic jam out there. Yikes. The Budweiser, the Pan Pack, coming out. Okay, for the start. Here we go. We may have some guns jump. We may have a boat jump the gun. We'll check it in a moment. In the meantime, the Squire Shop in front, Thousand Trails inside, and Bill Muncey is dead in the water. He never made it across the starting line. He's dead in the water. Let's see if he can restart. We'll keep an eye on it for you.
Heat 2B was another fast boat race, but the Atlas Van Lines, which had finished 4th in Heat 1B, was severely damaged. And after Bill Muncey and his crew inspected that damage, he reluctantly threw in the towel for the Gold Cup.
There just isn't any competition like the Gold Cup, and I hate to miss it, but I think maybe, you know, 1981, I may be eliminated right at this point.
In San Diego, 1981, we broke a propeller during one of our heats, and the boat half sunk. And by the time the boat came back, it was badly damaged on the bottom and the back end. We had 2 weeks to have the boat ready to be in Acapulco.
That boat race, all the people from Acapulco were there, and they wanted Bill to go down to Mexico and, you know, look at the race course. And Bill thought, well, oh my goodness, they were going to pay so much prize money. And Bill got the idea of also having it be a UIM race, which is Union of International Motorboat Racing, out of Belgium. And so he was able to do that. And went down to Acapulco and decided it really would be great for the sport, having an international event.
We were back in the shop in Seattle repairing the boat, and the phone rang, and it was Bill. And he asked me why I was still there. And I said, well, I had told him in San Diego that I would help them get the boat repaired and get it off to Acapulco, but I really wasn't interested in going to the last race. And he said, well, if I bought you a ticket and everything, would you like to go just to this last race? And I thought about it, and the boat was almost finished, and I said, well, okay, I'll go. And he got all excited, and he said, I'll meet you at LAX, and I'll send you the ticket and give you my itinerary, and we'll join up there, and we'll go down there together and have fun. And he made it sound fun to me. And I'll never forget flying into LAX and going to the gate and seeing this little guy with a big head and a newspaper in his face with a plume of smoke going up between the paper. And I said, that's Bill. And sure enough, there he was, and really excited. He was excited that I was there. And he said, we're going to go down to Acapulco. We're going to have fun. We'll be roommates down there. And so we flew down there together.
And we'd been repairing the boat, and we didn't know if we were going to make it for sure or not, but there was a date when you had to be at the border. If you weren't at the border on that date, you didn't go, as the Mexican government was sending up some escorts to go along with the boats. Lo and behold, we got down to the border. We drove day and night. We got down to the border, and we got hooked up with everybody right when they were coming out of their motel rooms and getting in their rigs and getting ready to go down there. So we fell into line, and we went along with them. So anyway, we go and follow these guys down there, and it was a long drive and several days. And anyway, finally we got down there, and we were down there for a day or so, and then here comes Bill. And he'd flown down, and he's all apologetic. And did you guys have a hard time? Did you have enough to get down here and everything? And
Bill was extremely excited about racing in Mexico, more excited than I've ever seen about anything. And I don't know exactly why. He might have had something to do with putting the race on down there or organizing to get it started down there. And he had called, and he was making sure all the teams were coming. And I had actually crashed testing for the Mexican race. So he had called up to make sure I was going to be there and if he could help. And he said, well, why don't you, make your connection in San Diego, and we'll, go down on the same flight. And he was just, like a little kid. I mean, he was just so thrilled to be racing in Mexico. So he went down there with this great expectations. But I think he felt, again, a huge responsibility to make this race a success. And we got down there and had problems right from the start with the organizers. Just you name it, we had problems with it. And we had meeting after meeting in hotels, kind of negotiating with the Mexicans, and it was a tough deal. And then once the racing started, Bill just seemed desperate to win that race. And I don't know if it's because it was the last race of the season. I don't know if it was because he had been getting beat up by the Griffon, all this time. But he just seemed desperate to win that race.
Mr. Bennett, Bill Bennett of Circus Corporation, called me the next day and said, is Bill there? I said, no, he's already down in Acapulco. He said, well, tell him that I just bought 14 Griffon engines, and we're going to share them, and we're going to beat Bernie. And so that was very exciting news, so I could hardly wait to tell Bill. And I never got a chance to.
And we got to the hotel, and Bill said, you're my roommate, and we moved into the room, and he's unpacking his bag, and he unpacked all of these outfits that Fran had bought him, and he didn't like any of them. And he said, she wanted me to wear this, but I don't know. What do you think? And I said, no, if you want, wear it. And of course, he didn't wear it. And Bill would go to bed early, and I would stay up late with the guys. And I told Bill, I said, don't lock the door and put the deadbolt on it, because I'm coming in later. And I'll never forget opening the door, and the deadbolt was on it, and I about tore the whole thing off the hinge, and he jumped out of the window almost. He was so scared. He thought I was breaking into the room. The pit area was interesting. It was sand. The power was 110 volts, run on 2 wires nailed into the side of the palm trees. with unlimited amperage. So if you ever touched it, you'd probably be dead. And and the other part was that the boats, we had to wade the boats out. We had to walk them out, clear out onto the race course.
The race course got sorted out and everybody got qualified. Everything was going along pretty good. And then we hit something in the water and we poked a hole, I don't know, 6 inches or so, caved it in on the right sponson.
En segundo lugar en esta primer prueba de los 5 más rápidos. Congratulations, Bill.
Thank you. Gracias.
How do you feel?
Super. Excellent. Excelente.
Do you know how is your speed in this proof?
How does what?
Your speed?
How does my pit?
The speed.
Spirit?
The speed.
How fast? Speed. Not spid. Speed.
Speed, yeah.
In English. 160 miles an hour, 200 kilometers per mile per hour.
Él calcula que 160 millas, unos 200 kilómetros por hora desarrollado en esta prueba de velocidad. Nosotros estamos emocionados.
He had gotten a pair of those sport athletic goggles with the prescription in them. And that's what he had used to drive the race boat since I came back in '80. And he loved them. And he could see real well with them. The wind did not try to blow them off of his face. The water went away if they got water on him. And he was just real pleased with them.
He was driving brilliantly, and I think maybe the best driving of his life. But he was also getting more and more aggressive, to the point in Acapulco, I won't say I saw it coming, but I had a big talk with him after the first heat. He went into the corner, and I could see both sides of the boat. I could read Atlas van lines on both decks. And I turned away because I was on the beach, I wasn't racing in that heat, and I turned away because I knew he had crashed. When I did turn back, I saw him coming out of the first corner, out in front, and he pulled it off. Now, situations like that's not driver skill. I've had a few of them myself. It's just luck. He came in, and I walked over to him after a half hour or so, and I said, Bill, let's not leave anything in Mexico. And he had this real glazed look in his eye, this intensity I had never seen, and he was really intense all the time, but I had never seen this intensity. I don't even know that it's like he looked right through me. And he had come up with the term about let's not leave anything in Mexico. We were under really bad conditions. So I reminded him of that, and I just had an ominous feeling that you could see that he was going to try too hard.
Prior to the final heat, the crew, we waded the boat out, walked it out. There was 5 or 6 of us holding on to it. Bill would stand on the deck and have a smoke and wait until we got the boat in position before he'd climb in and take off. And he used to wear sports glasses at the time, and they were prescription sports glasses. And I looked up prior to getting to the position where he'd climb in the cockpit, and I said, "Where are your glasses?" And he said, well, I lost a lens in the last heat, so I'm going to have to rely on old reliables. And at the same time, of course, the sun was setting. It was very low in the sky, and it was right at the end of the straightaway at the back chute.
I said, well, how are you going to drive? You can't. That way the wind comes over that thing, you can't. He says, well, I'll drive with the visor. I said, look at the way the sun is and everything, Bill. You can't drive with a visor. You can't see through it. Well, he says, then I guess I'm just going to have to go with my old reliables. And I said, well, what? He said, my old reliables. I'll just drive. I said, man, that's going to be awful hard. Well, it's going to be okay. So he got in the boat and no goggles and got ready, and off he went. Disappeared. Gone. Out of sight. Well, anyway, and the boats are jockeying for position, and they're trying to find a lane to run in, and they're kind of pushing and shoving on one another, and they're slowing down real slow because they know they're early. And it was going to be a horrible start is what it was going to be. And so somewhere where they got about to go around the corner to come down to the start, here came the Atlas boat out of nowhere going 190 miles an hour coming across the lagoon. The race course is over here and it's coming at an angle to the race course like this. When he gets to the corner is empty. Nobody's in there. Now they're between the corner and the starting line, but they're still going slow because they're still early. So he comes around and he looks like he's going to put the thing up on the beach because he came real wide. He's going to run by him on the outside. Then he must have looked over there and saw, Jesus, there's a gaping damn hole right in the one lane. And he drove right behind of him with his foot in it. Nailed the damn starting line, just bang, right on it. Going as hard as that little thing would go.
The final heat in Mexico is nothing but bad memories for me, obviously because of Bill's death, but it was probably one of the worst heats I've ever driven in my life. Bill pulled off the most amazing start and the most amazing move I've ever seen in my life. We all were coming around the corner, maybe 100 miles an hour. He had gone all the way to Guatemala and got lined up at the start and was going maybe 180 miles an hour and was going to make a flying start on the outside, but then saw a lane on the inside, and right at the exit pin of the corner, he turned the thing left, went behind everybody, and then turned it right, which the boats don't do at all, and then just blew by us and made a perfect start.
He went around the corner just like he was on a string. And he went back down the back chute. We were standing on the beach, and pretty soon you could see the boat up in the air and you could see it dancing like this. And I'm standing on the beach yelling, get down, you pig, get down. And it went over backwards.
We had pleaded with the Mexicans for 3 days that you've got to run this final heat, I think, before 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because the course was laid out in such a way that in late afternoon you were going right into a low setting sun, and it was blinding. I mean, totally blinding. So as we came out of the first corner, you just went into this blinding light, and you were kind of just feeling your way down, and all of a sudden there was a upside down boat in front of me. Just all of a sudden. I never saw it coming. All of a sudden it just was. And the boats were all white. I didn't know whose it was. And I hit the boat absolutely perpendicular, square on, at about 165 miles an hour. And I remember looking to my right, and Milner Irvin was in the Madison boat, I think, at the time. And he had turned a severe right, same thing, just caught totally off guard because of the setting sun. He turned a hard right, which I don't think it turned the boat over, but it had thrown him out on the deck, and I could tell he was injured, and he was kind of laying half in the cockpit and half out. The patrol boat started coming, and I thought I was not injured, and I could see Milner was hanging over the cockpit, and they were coming to me, and I just kept waving to go to Milner, so they went to Milner first, which was bad because I think Bill was somewhere right by me, but I didn't know it.
We commandeered this little boat and we went out to him, and he was out of the boat, floating in the water, on his back, just like his infamous life jacket was supposed to do for him, and his eyes were open and everything. And anyway, we just held on to him. Pretty soon they came with a rescue boat, and they got the wire litter under him. They got him loaded in the rescue boat, and they took him up to the beach. But the interesting thing to me in all of this disaster and everything, we were right beside the entrance pin to the next turn. And so everybody through the years said, oh, well, what happened? He You know, he was going too fast, the boat was out of control, this, that, but yeah, all of the above. That all was part of the crash, but I don't believe that the boat would have ever crashed if he'd had his goggles.
They got Bill back to the shore and in a medical vehicle, and they rushed him off to another airstrip or something across the peninsula from where we were. And we got sporadic reports for the next few hours that there were signs of life. There wasn't. There wasn't. And so it was kind of left at the fact that we didn't really know what the status was or what had happened to Bill. And the next few hours into the darkness that night of the race was really consumed by the recovering of the boat. And our boat was upside down and pretty well badly damaged. And the water was so shallow that the crane had to pull the boat in from an angle. We did complete the project and got the boat back on the trailer, and everybody was pretty emotionally and physically worn out.
Fran was not at the race, and neither was Edward, and I think that's a really good thing. I remember focusing on the Atlas crew and watching them, and I remember Jim Harvey's face and Dave Seefeldt, and later on I found out how close Dave Seefeldt and Bill were, that Dave Seefeldt did not want to come back to race. But Bill pleaded with him and said, "I'm getting beat by this Griffon. Would you please come and help me?" And I think Dave felt bad the whole time that he didn't want Bill racing anymore. And here he was helping Bill race. So I think Dave was kind of turning it on himself that, well, maybe if he hadn't come back, maybe this wouldn't have happened. And I think everybody on their team was just in a state of shock, as the whole pit area was.
When they took Bill from the lagoon and they transported him to the airplane, his heart stopped a couple times and he quit breathing and one thing and another, and they were able to resuscitate him. And they got him in the airplane and they flew him up to that Marine base, and Doc Johnson said, "Well, I don't know, it's kind of touch and go." He says he failed a couple times on the way up here, but we were able to resuscitate him. So I went there, and so Bernie told the commander at that base, he says, "This is his crew chief, this is his friend, this is the guy that has the authority to make the decision." So I said to that man, I said, do you have equipment that we can bring here that's portable, that we can bring here to do a proper diagnosis and find out exactly how severe this injury is? Or, "No, we don't have it here, but we have it down at the main hospital downtown." And I said, "Well, let's take him downtown then." Well, the doctor's reluctant to do that because they're afraid if they move him one more time that he might not make it. And the guy said, "Well, if you'll be responsible for the move, we'll go ahead and allow him to be moved." And I said, "Where do I sign? Let's do it." So we did. We took him down to the hospital, and he made it fine down to the hospital. And when we got down to that hospital, because it wasn't military anymore, it was civilian, they allowed the APBA doctor to go in there too. And he said, "There's nothing here that we can do for him." And he said, "If we had him in New York City at the best hospital with the best talent in the nation, and we had him there the moment of the accident, there's a possibility that we could keep him alive and keep him going." He said, "But now, at very best, if we're able to keep him alive, he won't ever regain consciousness. He won't ever be able to feed himself. He won't be able to dress himself. He probably won't be able to speak." And William and I had a discussion about this sort of thing the prior winter time. And that's when he's telling me that he has everything under control and that I shouldn't worry about the boat. I should make it go faster and don't ever think about crashing because it's never, ever going to happen. And anyway, we made it through that discussion, and then the final part of it was, "But if it ever does happen, You know how I hate pain. He said, just make sure that I never feel any. And yeah, if they can't fix me so I can come back and drive anymore, he says, I don't want to come back. So well, you got to take care of that. I said, well, that's not my responsibility. I said, that's between you and Francis. I don't have anything to do with that. He said, Francis ain't going to be at all the races. It's going to be your responsibility. So when the doctor came out, he told me that, and I thought about that conversation that Bill and I had, and so I told him, I said, well, you can't fix him. No, he says, nobody can fix him at this point. And I said, so what do you suggest? He said, well, I don't know. He says he's going to continue to get worse because we can't do anything with him here. If we take him to the United States, he might not make it to the United States. If he does get to the United States, there isn't much we can do for him there. I said, is he on life support now? He said, yeah. I said, can he make it on his own without life support? He said, well, for a while, but every time we disconnect him, he quits breathing and everything. And I said, well, it's time.
My sister and I had taken my son Edward and her son Jason to ride bikes in El Cajon, very, very close to San Diego, and turned on the race, listened to the heats and everything, and then the final heat, listening to Jim Hendrick and hearing that Bill Muncey had flipped, the boat had flipped. So we just threw those bikes in the back of the truck, raced home as fast as we could. The first call was that they'd gotten his heart started and he was in the hospital. And so by then, lots of people were over at the house. And then the next call was that he had died and that there was nothing that they could do.
One of the things that needed to happen right away was one of our officials came to me and they said that we need to pick some clothes out for Bill to wear home. And so I went up to the room, and we went up to the room, and I knew what he didn't want to wear. He didn't want to wear the outfit that Fran bought him, which was, if I remember, it was a blue and white orchid Hawaiian-looking outfit that Don Ho would probably wear. And that wasn't Bill Muncey. What Bill Muncey was his scuffed-up driving boots, his blue polyester pants, and his worn-out corduroy tan sports jacket with a white Atlas Van Lines golf shirt. And sure enough, all of those items were in the drawer, and that's what I felt that he needed to be dressed in, because that was Bill Muncey. And that night I stayed there in the room, and I remember waking up several times wondering when he was going to come in.
I think probably the hardest thing that I had to do was sing for Bill's funeral. We cared about him so much that I was sure that I would break down and cry, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to ruin the service. I didn't want to upset anyone. And I remember standing and trying to collect myself so that I could put on a strong face and sing. And where we were was by the water. No one else could get through to that water, and there was a picnic table there. And the picnic table was empty, and I turned my head, and then I turned back again to the picnic table, and there was an L&M cigarette on the edge of the table, like somebody was smoking it, but there was nobody there, and a can of Gatorade for some reason, that gave me so much strength because I felt like he was there and he was saying, hey, don't worry about it. You know, you're a pro. You can get through this.
So there were just so many people, and it was a very, and I wanted it to be, because we needed to, out of respect for Bill, just to make it just the best funeral there ever was. And I think it was. I think it was the most meaningful. It became an event, and I think there were 1,500 people there, but it was just, I think everyone was inspired. And Fred, Radke, and Gina Fumes played and sang beautifully. Everyone Bill loved was there, and they were a part of it.
There must be an unlimited hydroplane race in heaven, but I imagine that the Almighty is the chief referee. And with him in charge, I imagine up until now they've been pretty peaceful, well-run events. But Lord, it ain't never going to be the same because you got Wil Muncey now.